I'm just going to be sharing my journey and just how I started my business and how I started as a content creator and a few things that I've learned along the journey. And yeah, I hope it helps in some way. And I'll leave some time at the end just for questions that anybody wants to ask. I know this is being recorded, so if you want to ask something more personal, you can come and ask me afterwards. I'm more than happy to answer, or you can take my number and then we can talk. So yeah, you can go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to be giving a small introduction about my academic journey, starting a business at 17, and then just major tips I've picked up along the way, especially like whilst being a student and managing everything, and then we'll have questions. So my academic journey. So growing up, I was always quite academic in some sort of way. Like I love science. Is good? Okay. I love science, maths, and English. Like, I loved it so much. And I guess as you go through the years, you start to specialize in different things that you enjoy more. And I got to my GCSEs, and I expected to do like amazingly well. I wanted to get like nines and eights. That's like A's and B's. I mean, like, yeah, like A's, high A's. And then I got to GCSE results day, and I was like, whoa, this is not what I expected. By the way, you guys can interact with me as I'm going, so don't feel like you just have to listen as I'm talking. Yeah, so I was expecting like nines, eights, and I didn't get that. I got like some sevens, but a few sixes and fives, and I was really disappointed and gutted. And for those of you that know, the way the education system works, that to do something for A level, you need to get sixes minimum. And for the subjects I wanted to do, I didn't get sixes, and I was like, thank you. Is this, do you want to take this? Yeah, and I was gutted. This is so much better, thank you. I was completely gutted, and I remember going home to my dad. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So initially, I wanted to study pharmacy, and so I did something called applied science, which is like a BTEC version of basically biology, chemistry, and physics put together. And then I did English literature and psychology, and so that would get me onto the pathway to study pharmacy. So I did all my applications, and then you guys know sometimes things don't always work how you want them to. So I came to A levels, and I didn't actually end up doing A levels because of COVID. So I was like, God, I don't really know what's going to happen, but my predicted grades were pretty good at the time. So I ended up going to do pharmacy for 1 year at uni. I got into one uni, and I'll be honest, I did not enjoy it at all. And it was a bit of a shock for me because I was very much focused on science. I had no other interest. But before actually going to university, God was like, some people even sent God to mention doing a business related course. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I had started my cake business in sixth form, but I never thought that I was going to study it. I actually used to laugh at people in GCSEs that studied business. So when I was considering it, it was just a bit weird for me. And even as I introduced it to my dad, those of you that know him, he's very much stick to the plan. Like, what are you doing? So when I introduced it to him, he was like, Faith, I don't know. So initially the course I presented to him was marketing, because I had already been doing it just through content creation and obviously with my business. So I ended up switching my course, doing marketing, and then specializing in finance in my final year. So yeah, doing that was definitely a lot more enjoyable, and I did a lot better through that degree rather than doing pharmacy. So yeah, I finished my degree like a month ago now. We thank God. Yeah, and currently I have a marketing internship at an investment firm. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks now. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks. So intern, so yeah, at an investment firm, yeah. And that's what I've been doing. I've really enjoyed it so far. And I think through my academic journey, I've really just seen the faithfulness of God, because I think there's so many opportunities I've had access to through doing this course that I don't think I would have had access to if I did pharmacy, just because I had a lot more flexibility, and I think I was also just very hardworking. And I think sometimes you think that if you've got a lot on your plate, you're not able to do other things. But if you're good with your time management, you're able to do other things while studying. And that's something that I've been able to do. So in year 13, I'm going back, I'm jumping, so just stay with me. In year 13, I started a YouTube channel, and it was called When Faith Speaks. And I just wanted to, my main goal was just to encourage young women to take their walk with God seriously. That's just something a passion that I've had from young. I'm very passionate about women and like that sort of ministry, sisterhood, building that essentially. So I started it, and it was called When Faith Speaks at the time, but then I changed to Faith Rosaline just so that I could like diversify my content essentially. So now I share like lifestyle things. I shared like my last 4 weeks at university, and I think when God led me to change my content a bit, it was just so that it can be a bit more relatable, because sometimes when you're sat down and just talking at people, it's very hard for them to receive it. But when you actually show them a journey, it's a lot easier for them to see like, oh, okay, this is possible, rather than you just saying words at them. So that was the main goal of that. So I share like my faith, lifestyle, and community. That's something that's a big passion for me. Community. I don't believe in doing life alone. And if you look at my life and who I've become today, it's because of the people around me, my pastors, my parents, my brother, my aunties, uncles, all of you. That's the reason I am who I am today. So I don't believe in doing life in isolation, and that's what I wanted to share essentially. So now, next slide, please. So in the journey of doing content creation, I had no plans for it to start to turn into a business or to even make money from it. It was just like, you know what, let me just share this. I remember when I started, I had plans to do pharmacy, so I had no idea of doing business of some sort. It was like, what am I doing? But then as I became consistent with it, I started to get like messages to work with brands, and I wasn't too sure like how to navigate this. So I thank God for people that I could lean on and ask questions. So that's another thing. Have people that are well versed in the thing that you want to go into. That's very important, because you can't do it by yourself. You don't really have much knowledge. So I got my first paid brand campaign in December with National Express. And that was essentially me filming content for them as a student traveling back home. And when I got that, I was like, how did we get here? But then I didn't reach out to them, but they reached out to me. And I was like, first of all, how did you find me? Second of all, like, why me? And they said that I think when I was talking to the woman that was like liaising with National Express and myself, she was saying that there was a lot of people on their list, but they actually reached out to me. And I was like, God, like, how did we get here? But I realized that with my consistency, they were able to see that there's a pattern of excellence, that there's a pattern that this girl is committed to this thing. She's not just doing it for the views, but she's actually passionate about what she's talking about. And she's serious. And I was serious. And so I guess in sharing my faith, you think that if when you share your faith, we're not going to get that many opportunities. Guys, share your faith. Don't be scared, because God will use that as an opportunity to be light in areas where there's darkness. I think sometimes as Christians, we can get very comfortable in being in areas where there's just lots of light. But what's the point if you're all just shining? You're not really making a difference. So, yeah, when I had that opportunity, I was just very humbled. And so, yeah, I think I share this just to encourage you guys. You never know who's watching. So if you're doing something, be committed to it and be excellent at it, because you just don't know. Like, you never know. So next slide, please. And then I got into freelance content creation. So I started this about 2 years ago, and this is more so just like filming content for brands, doing behind the scenes content. And this is something that is very new. Like, it's not something that has been done for a very long time. So when it came to me approaching this market, I didn't really have many people to go off of, apart from I'm just winging it. Let's see where we go. And like, I guess you have like your rates and you can compare, maybe ask a few people that have been doing it. But I didn't really have much to go off of. But I do have a lot of people in my life that when they're growing, they will make sure that you're growing with them. So I would always just tag along. So I'm sure you all know Shireen Jazz Kolabako. I hope you know her. So she is a gospel music artist, and she's been very successful in doing what she's done, but she's also my sister. So in the process of her like growing her brand, she actually invited me to shoot content for her. And I was like, wow, okay. This was last year, August. So she called me to film content for her. It was a paid gig, and I said, sure. So I went to film, and whilst I was filming for her, it was for TBN. And TBN is, I'm sure, do you want to know TV? Yeah, TBN, okay. Yeah, whilst I was there, one of the people came up to me and they were like, would you like to film content for us? And I was like, sure. Like, so they saw that I was filming content a lot for Jazz. And whilst I was doing that, I think I was like, because it was my first gig, I was doing a lot. I was filming everything. I was like, do you want me to film this, that? And they were just like, wow, she's doing a lot. So they asked me and they said, yeah, we'll pay you some more and you can film content for us as well. And I was like, okay. So I didn't mind making content for them, but I was also quite overwhelmed. But I think something I had to learn is just always stay ready. Do you have a question, yeah? Thank you for asking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you for asking. So, content creation, it comes in very different forms, but the one that I do is like I film behind the scenes videos or videos for brands like ads. So I guess, I don't know if you like LCF, they might do like promotion videos for events. I am somebody that would film that. Or let's say National Express, I filmed my journey of me going from Norwich to London and just like the scenes, how I found the journey. And in that, I was able to promote the brand. So it's not always directly promoting the brand, but when you feature a brand, they can pay you for that, or they should pay you for that. Don't ever do it for free. So yeah, essentially that's what it is. I hope that helps. Yeah? Yeah. And sometimes it can come in the form of like Reels or TikToks. Reels are like the video versions of TikToks on Instagram, and then YouTube Shorts, things like that. So yeah. Through filming the content for Shireen, I actually became her social media manager for a few months. And I'm sharing the journey because I want you guys to see that like sometimes you just have to give things a go. Don't always try to be so calculated, because when like Jazz called me, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go. And then through that, like blessings just started to come again and again. So I'm a firm believer in working hard. Like I believe work hard, play hard. That's my motto. But I'm also a believer in favor. I believe that God can favor you in places that you would have never expected, but sometimes you just have to take the step of faith, because I don't think it makes sense to have faith and not actually take the steps of the unknown, like you don't know what's going to come next. So yeah, I think those are the main things I wanted to share about my journey. Next slide, please. So yeah, before I start, as I said, I'm a firm believer in working hard, and I do believe that there is a time for everything. So I just want to read Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1. You don't have to turn there because I didn't give it to you, but I'll just read it from my phone. It says, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." So I think there's definitely a phrase that goes around, especially around in my generation. It says, work smarter, not harder. And I'm going to counteract that because I do think it's important to work smart, but I think before you get to a place where you can work smart, you need to work hard. And I think sometimes we skip that and we try to find shortcuts. I know when I was in sixth form, and silly, like in a very silly way, I would look for courses that were always shorter than like 4 years or 5 years, because I just don't want, why am I at university for so long? Like I just want a shortcut to get to the money essentially. But things take time and you have to just go through the pain seasons, go through the birthing seasons. I think even one time when I came back from uni, Pastor Lincoln gave us sermons on birth stools, I think. Is that, yeah. And I think that just really encouraged me, because I think in the beginning of things there's going to be pain, and even in the process of things there's going to be peaks and troughs, and that's just the reality of life. You can't skip seasons. So yeah, before I start, I just wanted to premise with that, like as much as there's a point in time where you can work smart, but before that you should have worked hard. Otherwise you're cutting corners, and I don't think you're able to even learn the full lesson of, I guess, the full lesson that God would have wanted you to learn. Because I think as much as God may give you a promise for something, there's definitely a process that you have to go through to be able to access that and even manage it. Sometimes we can have prayers, God, I want to make 50K, but you have no like financial literacy in any way. So the 50K might come and it'll be gone by the end of the month. And that's not any of our plan. So sometimes God might take you through seasons of, okay, he's giving me this £100. How am I going to split this? 10% goes to tithe, 50% goes to bills. Things like that. Just knowing how to manage the small and go through the process of things is so important to me. So I'm going to go through 4 different things. Am I going too fast? Should I slow down? Good? Okay. So I'm just going to go through 4 different things that I've learned on my journey of entrepreneurship and whilst being a student as well. I'd shared going to uni, but I didn't really share the journey. And so the 4 things I'm going to share are time management, writing the vision and making it plain, high charges equal excellent service, I'll expand later, and something has to give. So before we go to the next slide, for time management, I just want to premise by saying God cares about how you spend your time. I taught at North, I think it was the last Youth Sunday or Youth Month, and I spoke about honoring God with your time and doing things excellently. So if you'd like to know more of that, we can talk, or you can watch that sermon, because I don't think I have time to expand further, but I do believe that God deeply cares about how you spend your time, and no matter how young you are, not even when you start working or have kids, even as a student, before, he cares. And I think I'm going to share all the things I've been able to do whilst being at uni. And I just want to say this isn't to gloat. It really is just to show the grace of God and also just favor and how being organized, where it can get you and how much free time you actually have. We always say everyone has the same 24 hours, but really and truly, everybody does have the same 24 hours. But I guess there's seasons where things might be difficult, things might look different, but I think that we can do a lot more than we actually think we can, if that makes sense. So, yeah, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so I got a marketing degree. I served as vice president for one of my a Christian fellowship. The year after, I served as president for that fellowship. I ran a cake business in first year. I still run the business, but I took a break in my last years just so I could manage uni. And then I also ran a food blog, just sharing things that I like to eat because I like food. And then I landed a brand campaign with National Express. I started a worship ministry with my friend at uni. I served in a ministry called House of Prayer, which actually runs in London. And we host things like 5 hours of prayer, 10 hours of prayer, things like that. And I'm a content creator, so I do YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and Instagram. I became a content creator for my uni as a student ambassador, and then I was a content lead for a charity called Run Your Race, and we're raising money for evangelism missions in the UK. And then I mentored women, so some of them in the fellowship Save to Save and LCF as well. I supported my sister, who's my friend, in a business called Brunch with the Girls. It celebrates godly sisterhood. So we come together and we encourage women just to spend time with one another. And I solo traveled to Paris. I traveled with friends. I was a natural hair brand ambassador, another natural hair brand ambassador for another company. I'm a youth leader here. I was a social media manager for Shireen, and I got an internship with an investment firm called Cardano. So, so yeah, this is a lot. And something I found interesting is that I did a lot of these things. Definitely it's spread out over the years. So I was at university for 4 years. It's spread out over the years, but I think when I did the most things, I actually had more going on with uni, and I was like, God, how is this working? But it was more so because I became more organized. In first year and second year, I was a mess, but I was doing less, and my grades were worse. So I was like, how is this working? But it's because I wasn't organized. I didn't have boundaries. I was not diligent, and it was just kind of up in the air. And I remember one time going to my friend, like, how are you so organized? She's honestly the friend I go to when it comes to this whole organization thing. But she also highlighted to me that it's the grace of God, but also God honors the fact when you plan with him. He doesn't, when it's something that you just kind of just you set it out in your mind, but you don't write it down. It's kind of like you're not serious. But God honors when you're serious. and he will help you. Like, I'm a firm believer. I'm going to talk about it in the end. I say I'm a firm believer a lot. um, but yeah, I think God will grace you for the things that he's called you to. I don't believe that if God has called you to something, yes, you work hard, but you shouldn't have to work too hard because there's a favor that's available to you, a grace. So, yeah, I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so in terms of time management, these are the three things that I try to stick by. So I try to be organized, disciplined, and integral. So, hold on. So yeah, being disciplined, even when, it's kind of in the wrong order, anyways, it's fine. Being disciplined, sometimes when I don't want to do things, I do it anyways, because that's just something I have to get done. And I know future faith will thank me for that. And being organized, something I like to do is I make a list of my priorities every Q1, so every quarter, not Q1, every quarter of the year. So I make a list of priorities, and sometimes that changes, but something that always stays at the top is my relationship with God. But sometimes it alternates, like relationship with family or relationship with friends. It's not necessarily because one thing is more important than the other. It's just that in a previous season, I may have put systems in place that would have allowed those friendships or relationships to thrive in the next, or whereas something else might be lacking. So I try to look at that and see, okay, what are my priorities? I can maybe share them with you if that's helpful. Yeah? Okay, let me go to my notes. Hold on. So yeah, currently it's my relationship with God, my finances, my relationship with my family, career/business, my relationship with friends, and then ministry, so just serving and church things, and then everything else kind of trickles after that. Those are like the top priorities. So when I do plan my day or plan my week or plan my month, I always consider those things. So the next thing is I also aim to be integral. By the way, as I'm saying these things, this isn't something that I'm perfect at. I'm still trying. These are things that I just aim for, and then along the way I've been able to achieve these things. So essentially being integral, you do the things that you say you're going to do, and who you are outside is who you are at home as well. That's something I'm very, very passionate about. I think ministry starts in the home, so who you are at home should always be it should be the same. I don't believe in living a double life. So if you say, I don't know, you pray for so-and-so, if you're a kind person to people outside, you're a kind person at home, that kind of thing, I think that's so important. And I think with my time management, I always do checks with myself. I do mental checks, spiritual. Am I drained? Am I overwhelmed? Am I anxious? I do emotional checks with myself. How am I feeling? Am I just overwhelmed essentially? And then I do physical checks. I think being healthy physically is very important as well. So I do those checks with myself as I plan. So I'm very organized, I aim to be very organized. So I literally plan my months, or I have yearly plans. And with those monthly plans, I go back and I check, did I do these things? Like even today, it's the last day of the month. I'm going to go back and look at the plans that I set for the month. Did I achieve them? What went well? Even better if. Because I think we do these things with school, but why can't we do it with our own personal lives as well? I believe in thriving wholly as much as you do academically. So yeah, next slide, please. So writing the vision and making it plain. I think we all know the scripture I'm going to go to, but it's Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2. And it says, "Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it." I just think sometimes the gap between thinking about doing something and actually doing it or actually writing it down is too big. So we need to close the gap. You've thought about something, okay, write it down. It might be a stupid idea, but you've wrote it down and you can present it to people and be like, guys, okay, this is something I want to do. Let me know what you think. And if you have good community, they'll be like, no, maybe just take it easy. Maybe not now, or maybe this isn't a great idea. And if you have good community, they may say, oh, this is a good idea. Okay, how are we going to go about doing this? Because I think when you want to start something, sometimes I'm used to doing things alone, but I've learned over the years that you need people to help you. You need a team. And it may not be necessarily people have specific roles or you give them titles, but friends. Like my friend that I supported in running the business brunch with the girls, like I'm just her friend. I don't have a title in the business. I don't have any shares in the business. I'm just her friend that's there to help her film content. And so literally leverage, like as much as I don't want to say you should see your friends as like opportunities, but like see your friends, they could be your potential business partners. Every single person in this room is a potential business partner and you just don't know. So I would say like really leverage that and make the most of it. Don't always try to go and source things from outside because you think that the service may be better. You just don't know what you have in-house. And it could even be better because you actually know them. So if they're doing things bad, you can be like, come on, like get it together, that kind of thing. So thank you. Next slide, please. So high charges equals excellent service. So something that I used to struggle with my business is like pricing. I used to be like, I don't really know if people are going to pay this much for cake. It's just eggs, butter, and flour. But then I had to understand that, Faith, this is your time, this is your passion, and you're also doing it well. Like, it's not something you're just doing, but you're really trying. Like, you've done this for years. Like, you guys know my mom used to bake years ago, and I used to literally sit there and watch her. I would lick the spoon, and I would watch her, like, doing things, and she used to be so busy, and over the years, I picked it up myself, and baking takes time. It can take, like, 7 hours to make one cake. And so sometimes you have to figure out, okay, who's my clientele? Your friends might not be your clientele, and that's okay. Because if you want to have a thriving business, you want to reach people outside of your immediate circle. So that's something I had to understand. And I'll be honest, I didn't start off having excellent service. My cakes weren't great starting out. The decorations weren't that nice. The taste wasn't great. Like, do you know what I mean? But even just how things ran, it wasn't that great. But with time, I was able to alter things, increase my prices. As you just evaluate this, like the market, like what are people doing? And I think any young person that wants to start something, be humble and be willing to do things for free at first. Be willing to give things to people and to start out and to volunteer because you don't realize the lessons that you're learning, just everything. Like, it's so helpful. I remember when I first started, I don't know if you guys have to remember, April, she has a business as well. And I literally used to go to her house and be like, hey, April, tell me what I need to do. I'd be like, I need to know everything. I would just sit there and she would help me. Or I would message her, I would send her things to taste, and she's like very honest, and that's what I need. Or like my dad, he's very, very honest. If he doesn't like something, he'll tell you. He's very, very honest and clear. Like, he'll be like, too much sugar. Next time, maybe not too much icing. Like, that's what I need. So find people that are honest, that can help you, because sometimes your friends, as much as they're lovely, like, they may not be as honest with you as like maybe someone at home or somebody that is very well versed in that area that you want to get into. So yeah, through that I was able to charge better prices, but I had to make sure that my service was premium before I could even start doing that. So, next slide, please. Okay, something has to give. So as much as I showed you guys that slide of all the things I was able to achieve whilst being at university, I used to always be someone that was like, find balance, like try to balance, uni work, spending time with family, spending time with friends. I guess in the literal sense, I don't think balance actually exists. You can maybe strive for it, but in some seasons, something will always have to give. Something you're always just gonna have to give less attention to something else. And I think that's okay, but I think it's always important to you need to know what you want more in that season. If it's the good grades, take a pause in the business. If it's you want to do better in the business, okay, what am I giving too much of my time to? But as I said, know your priorities. So at the time, whilst I was studying, my priority was always my relationship with God and my degree. Those things, the moment they start to get compromised, something has to give out of all of those things. And I realized that after a while, as I started to set my boundaries and be more firm with them, I actually started to say no more than I did yes. And my dad used to be like to me, he used to call me and he used to be like, Faith, you're doing a lot. Like, how's your degree? And I'd be like, Daddy, I'm actually saying no a lot more than I do yes. And he was like, wow, okay. And I realized that with time, you just have to get used to saying no and get used to understanding that it's just a season. Like, and something people say a lot is like, it's summer, enjoy yourself, just live life, spend the money, it's gonna come back. But sometimes you're gonna have to miss out on the summer. And that's okay. Like, you're just gonna have to miss out on that summer, miss out on that holiday. As much as I was able to go on those holidays, those solo trips, I said a no to a lot of the other things that I could have done. And I also saved a lot. Like, I was very firm with like my money and things like that. Like, if people would be like, oh, let's go out, I'd be like, it's not in my budget. It's not necessarily that I don't have the money. Sometimes I didn't have the money, or I'll just be like, it's not in my budget right now, sorry. And you just have to be firm, and something always has to give. And I think, as much as I say, yes, work hard, working smart will come eventually, I do think that work should not become your life. So know when to rest, listen to your body, do those checks with yourself, like, how am I doing emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically? I think that's always important. And as I said, like, as much as you may miss that summer, there will be another summer. I don't know about this UK, but there will be another summer. There will be another summer. And yeah, I think in the midst of working, it's important to keep your priorities in mind. Like, never forget your why. But something my friend said to me one time, he said, but also never forget your how. As much as, yes, you're remembering your why and why you're doing things, remember that as much as you're doing a lot, it's actually the grace of God that is allowing you to do that. So I think when you remember your how, it keeps you close to the cross. It reminds you that, God, I'm not doing this on my own strength, and I actually need you. And I think something I remember, I think Pastor Grace saying a long time ago is that, like, she's too busy to not pray. And I actually believe that as well. I'm too busy to not pray. Like, I have to pray, because the moment I stop praying, or the moment I stop relying on God, I realize I'm actually leaning on my own strength, and I'm about to get burnt out very quickly. So I think if we just go to the last slide. Yeah, I believe God graces you for the things he has called you to. And the moment you're striving a bit too much, you have to take a pause and just reflect. Ask God, like, is this you, or am I just doing this because everybody else is doing it? Or am I just doing it because I want to do it? I think it's important to know, I guess, what you've been called to in that season. A lot of the time we can get our priorities confused because of things like social media or what our friends are doing, but that's their season, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's yours, and your time will come. And that's something I've had to make peace with, especially now finishing uni. Like, there's so many things you might see around you, like uni, post-uni is the time where everyone's getting engaged, or people are getting these big jobs or things like that. And I think that's amazing, but it's like you have to focus. I think a word that God gave to me at the start of this year was focus. And the moment I come out of that, I just have to realign myself and be like, okay, what do I need to focus on? What am I doing? Because I think that's just what keeps you sober. I think sometimes we can be very excited and think, oh wow, I finished uni now, I've got all this free time, okay, what am I going to do? But get your priorities in check. There might be a few summers that I miss out, and that's okay, because I know that at one point I will have a summer. Exactly. And it will be a great summer. And I think sometimes saying no means that later on you can say yes. So yeah, that's everything actually. Yeah, any questions?
Hello. Thank you, Faith, for such an excellent. Hasn't she been excellent? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, you've said so much, I don't even know where to start. But one thing stands out for me. I'm just remembering that you do lovely cakes. And my question is, every business, its success is, I think to a great extent, hinged on its marketing. How are you marketing? Because I'm not seeing a lot about Faith. How do you call them? Faith Roslyn cakes? What are your cakes called?
Oh yeah, Faith Roslyn cake. That's the
Yes,
business.
I'm not seeing much. Am I not on the right platform? Am I not on TikTok and these other things?
That's so funny.
Where do I find your cakes and what? I'm not giving away my. Is it on record? My ignorance on these matters. But where are you to be found on those matters of your cakes? Because in my mind, when you say cakes, there's a certain lady that comes to mind who is a friend, but you'd think, oh, I'm sure there should be somebody. Then now you say, I say, yeah. Actually, Faith does, but the marketing, do you think, am I in the wrong place, or should we be hearing a lot more about your marketing and where to find you?
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor T. Faith, well, of course, answer Pastor T's, but I also want, there might be things we do not know about marketing, as in the way you do things. It might be around maybe the way you've defined your target market, things like that. So speak to us, because much as we want to support your business, we also want to learn when we're doing business as well, what else can we do? I like the bit about pricing. So it could be that you thought maybe these guys only want to pay 21 pounds.
Thank you. I think it's actually both. Like, I think because I was at university, as I said, something had to give. And at the time, that was the business, because I just couldn't manage both. Like, doing a degree and then baking. Baking requires, you need a good kitchen, and university halls, it's not that great. Sometimes people make it work, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going by the book. And I think something I wanted to always do is be integral. So I think in terms of my marketing, I definitely took a break from that. So that's probably why you guys didn't hear much about it. But you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and hopefully by September. I put it in the slides. I should have mentioned it as I was talking. But I'm going to have a website soon, so then I can maybe share that in the business communities that you guys can have access to that. So the plan is hopefully to relaunch this year, because now that I'm back home, things are a lot easier. But yeah, as I said, something had to give at the time. So that's probably why you didn't hear much, because I wasn't taking orders for a while. And some of the few people that knew that I did cakes would approach me every time I'd come back from uni. Are you baking? And I'd be like, I'm going home this evening. I'm going back to uni this evening. And so, yeah, it was very hard. So, yeah, that was just the thing that had to give, essentially. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Faith. That was really good. We have quite a number of young people in here. And you did mention you started the cake business at the age of 17. How can you encourage our young people to use, it might not be a cake business, to use their talents? I know some of them spend a lot of time on social media, but just advertising themselves on maybe at a beach or whatever. How can you encourage our young people to use their talent? Because you did say you create content, and the YouTube channels, some of the things have started bringing you money. How can you encourage not just the young people, but even us, the adults? You talked about doing YouTube channels for speaking to women. There could be some of us with certain talents that would want to use. How can you encourage us to start using that? And can we come to you to help us create that content? Thank you.
Thank you. You can 100% come to me. I would love to help. And I think as an encouragement, there's many things I want to say. As an encouragement, I would say just start. I think when it comes to business, sometimes you can think too much. Like, sometimes we plan too much. I think have an idea. And I think even when I started my business, I had no idea who HMRC was. Like, I didn't, who's that? Like, and I didn't register for like a good while. So I think talk to people that are well versed in the area that you may want to go into. But I would say even before getting there, some people don't even know that they would want to do something. So I would say identify something that you're good at. I think it's very important to have skills, and the skills that you have, nurture them. So there's things called soft skills, like good communication, and there's things called hard skills, like maybe coding, things like that. So I would say figure out what you're good at. And I would even just say never stop learning. I think when I went to uni, I was like, once I'm done with this degree, I'm done. But even now, I'm still learning. Like, I think it's important, never stop learning, keep building up your skill set. And I think through that, you can identify what you may want to do. It might be drop shipping. It might be, I don't know, ebooks on like things like, it can be anything. But I would always say that there's always an opportunity. Like, there's always a way to make money. I think anytime you think that nobody will pay for this, you'll be shocked. Like, you will genuinely be shocked. There are people that are making money on TikTok from holding their phone up and buses are going past. Like, literally just filming themselves. People are making money. And I think there's so many opportunities, but I would say first of all, identify your passion, what you're good at, and also understand that it's going to take work. I think sometimes we think that we start businesses so that immediately we can quit our 9 to 5. You might not quit that 9 to 5 for a good 10 years, but eventually you could. But I think it's going to take time and it's going to take hard work. So yeah, I would say if you wanted to, I think it's very hard to speak generally because I think if I know maybe what you'd want to do or what other people would want to do, speak to me, and then maybe I could help you in that. So yeah.
Can it ever be discouraging to not make as much money as, say, for instance, the last month? Because being an entrepreneur can like have fluctuating results. So how do you like approach that?
Yeah, it can be discouraging. Thank you for the question. It can be very discouraging, but I think you have to understand that businesses peaks and troughs. Like there's going to be high times, there's going to be low times, and I think that's where, as much as I said time management, but money management is important. I think when I first started my business, this was just something I wanted to have extra cash to buy food after school or something. But now it's like, okay, I'm actually growing something, I'm building something. So I would say knowing how to manage the money in the high times is just as important as knowing how to manage it in the low times. And knowing that money comes and goes. And so it's just a bad month. It doesn't mean that your business is bad. I think that's important. Yeah.
Faith, mine is a question, but I'll be honest, I'm setting you up. When I say we, as in the LCF business community, are very keen to get people we are calling mentors or coaches to support other people into business. And for me, just listening to you, I just thought there's a lot we can learn from you, irrespective of age. Yeah, irrespective. Actually, listening to you, I just felt like you've just crushed the whole age generational thing. Yeah, and I felt we need to listen to you more. Just for you to know that we want to approach you so that you can come and be one of our coaches. Okay. And the idea is we can attach you to one or two people who I don't know how the sequence would look like. And these are things we are learning together. And I don't know if it's an area you've ventured into as well, the whole coaching thing, because people are paid thousands of pounds. Yesterday I was speaking to a friend who's flown to Dubai and they're being housed in a 5-star for 2 weeks. And they're going to come back with £50,000 just for coaching in one of the companies. But all they did is just listen to someone and they asked the questions and the other person gave answers, and now that's the life, the kind of opportunities that are out there. So just for you to know, we need you. So that was the setup.
Sorry? No, you can finish. Oh, thank you guys. That's all from me.
What a word that was. I got that being intentional was really important with your time and just everything around you. So thank you, Faith. So as we're about to end, I would like to pray us out. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for the amazing word and thank you for being able to understand the wisdom to be able to grow our territory. Please bless us all as we go forth today. Amen.